Hi, everyone, and welcome to the session 6. We're going to address right now the topic creating new alliances to engage SMEs on biodiversity. We're going to, with this part, close the part 2 of the event on bringing about transformative change through collective action and finance. So let me first, for this second session, welcome our many speakers. I'm very happy also to see that we have a lot of Belgian speakers in this session, as it was organized with all the Belgian partners from the event. So the objectives of this sessions are three. The first one is to understand what pioneering SMEs are already doing to integrate biodiversity and nature into their business working. Second, to identify which of the solutions they're actually using that have the best and the most positive impact on nature. And then to see how to identify them and to transform them into practical solutions so that other SMEs can also use them and we can then empower much more SMEs. Because what's really important to remember also is that we have about 25 million SMEs operating in the European Union and they employ together 100 million people. So when we talk about creating a European business for biodiversity movement, we simply cannot go without them. So that's why this session is really critical in this event. I will move very quickly already because we have a tight schedule to our first speaker. And I'm very happy to welcome Thierry Nozen, the CEO of Belvas, a mission-driven organization based in Belgium. Thierry, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lara. I hope you hear me well. Thank you all for being there, and I'm very happy to share our experience. I think the most important I would like that would remain from my intervention is that when you act or you want to go to that biodiversity or sustainability, actually you start probably because of the ideal or or for us it was a citizenship we considered, and I will explain. But actually you go always further and you continue, and then it becomes really a passion, because you learn that first of all the subject as itself is very interesting, because the subject is not easy, and there's always discussions on what solution would be the best. And also what I learned, and that is very motivating when you are in the process, is that as a company you realize that you have a huge leverage, a huge leverage towards what you would do as an individual. And we are talking for our company about 400,000 euro that we generate as extra revenue for the farmers that will double in the coming years. That are amounts that you never can reach as an individual with all the action you would do for the planet. And that's the most important I want to say is step into it, because we all want the planet to be better, but be sure that you're going to discover a new world and be becoming more and more motivated into the subject of biodiversity and sustainability. Now, to come a bit to our story, and I will be brief, but we as a chocolate factory, we started with fair trade at the very early, the first day actually, and then when I bought the company, we switched everything to fair trade, because I considered, and that's the phase that I would say citizenship, I considered as a Belgian chocolate factory, Belgian producer of chocolate, we needed to have the best system possible to help the farmers, because there's, in our industry of the chocolate, you have, as you know, very much a glamour image of the end product over here, but you have a huge poverty of the farmers over there. And fair trade was the first way. I'm still thankful that it exists, because it's a easy way for a company to enter a system where you already have all kind of tickers okay for towards ethical approach of a company. Later we switched to organic, so we didn't start straight away with organic. That was on demand of our customers. And when you go to organic on demand of our customers, I know it's also on ideal, but it was based on customers. Actually, organic is positive on many areas. We always believe it's the consumer who wants organic products, but once you enter organic products, you also do the best for the farmer, because for his health, it's of course a big difference to avoid all chemical products on the fields. And also on biodiversity, of course, it's a very important dimension. The organic farming is, of course, a huge difference for the planet and nature. So that was our, I would say, phase 2. Then we were active in organic and fair trade products, but we considered there's actually an inconsistency of having our factory not being also the best ecological possible. So we found the European norm of EMAS, you probably say. So we went for that certification. What's a big work, because we thought we were good, but having these guidelines of EMAS available, we understood we needed to go much further. And recently, with the last step, and then it's really not the absolute last, but the actual step we do always further to a sustainable, ethical approach of business, is that we set up more and more direct projects with the farmers. And if I just go to my slides so that you just see, I have a picture of the factory. And when we became EMAS, sorry, I should have shown this earlier. That's all kind of things we did with solar panels, but also a very interesting heat recuperation system. But that's not the point now. But we developed a full traceability to the farmers, and today we have projects that we really work on the field with the cocoa farmers, having learned what is the problem over there. And our ultimate project this year is that we now build a factory in Ivory Coast, because doing 3 steps of the production of cocoa over there very much helps the farmers, but also helps the planet, because we will, when you transport cocoa being already transformed, you put actually double the weight in a container. So that means you halve the transport weight on planet. So you halve the transports of cocoa to the north. You also avoid chemical products that usually are put into the container before closing the container. And so again, we are always further in the adventure towards biodiversity. And actually, I would never have thought 10 years ago when we started that we would be where we are now in the approach. And that's very much the message that I would like to leave is, as a company, you have a very high leverage on what you can do for the planet. And the subject is so interesting and motivating that you always go further. Well, that was my contribution.
Thank you very much, Thierry, for explaining this story to us, and also for showing the complete picture of the supply chain on such a product we love, for sure, in Belgium. This will bring us to the next speaker, Julius Palm from Follow Food, based in Germany. And Julius would tell us more about how to put people and the planet at the very center of business. Julius, over to you.
Thank you. Hey, hello, everybody. My name is Julius Palm. I'm the Director of Sustainability and Innovation at the sustainable food company Follow Food. And also, thank you, Thierry. I think we complement each other very well now, because you perfectly, for me, explained the power of organic and fair trade certification. And I will go more on a kind of meta attitude level. First of all, I want to give you a quick overview about who we are and what we do. We started in 2007 with the brand Follow Fish. Our goal was saving fish stocks, saving the ocean by changing the supply, by changing the role of suppliers and brands, by providing the most ecological product possible. from being part of the problem to being part of the solution, actually. And we were the first brand with 100% sustainable fish products. And in the beginning, we only earned skepticism and doubts for that. But the first years showed really that we weren't total maniacs and that our idea was successful and turns out to be working. This gave us the opportunity to realize our vision of a regenerative and future-proof food production, because our dream was and still is bigger than just fish. If we want to regenerate ecosystems, we have to look at the soil as well as the ocean. We are living in circulatory systems, as you all know. Therefore, there is no water protection without soil protection. And that's why we founded the agricultural brand Follow Food in 2015. After changing the way we produce fish, we're now working on changing the way we do agriculture in small steps. And here you can see a few examples of our nearly 100 products. They go from hand-fished tuna to other fish products to vegan pizza to, now it's not working. To vegan burger patties and to crazy organic vegetables. And with these, we are now market leader in Germany, and with a turnover of almost 70 million euros, one of the largest organic brands in Germany. An important pillar of what we do is transparency. That's why we invented the first tracking code in the food sector for our fish products and also now for agricultural products. Every customer can trace where the product comes from, how it was produced, where and why, by whom, and what the entire supply chain looks like. From 2021, the respective ecological footprints will also be visible for each product. So now I hope you know a bit more and have an overview of what we do, but our approach is not only to be as ecological as possible, it is to set new limits to what is possible. So let me give you an example. In 2019, we founded an initiative called Bodenretter. Literally translated, it means Soil Saver Initiative. The goal is to further develop organic farming and make regenerative agriculture marketable. For us, the key to more biodiversity, actually. And we want to bring permaculture to the fields, into the supermarkets. 5 cents for each of Follow Food product goes into a Bodenretter fund. And with this money, we help farmers to establish regenerative farming methods and thus develop marketable products, which we buy from them at a fair price. Together with a pioneering project in Europe, the pioneering project in Europe actually, with Benedikt Bösel in Brandenburg, we are working on a model farm for regenerative agriculture, which covers about 1,000 hectares, so quite big. And we invest more than 100,000 euros annually in this partnership. This is an equivalent to about 10% of our annual profit. And the first product will hopefully come onto the market at the end of 2021. So yes, we are not making any turnover with it. Currently, it is only costs. But if we want to continue to have a reliable food supply, and if we want to continue to make money from what we do, and if we really want to innovation, we need investments. Can you still hear me? Sorry. I don't know where you last heard me again, but I hope you got all the part of our initiative for establishing regenerative agriculture with a model farm in Brandenburg. And I was just talking about that we don't make any money with it now, and it's only costs. But what I want to talk to you about is that if we want to have reliable food supply, if we want to continue doing what we do, if we want a long-term solution for the degradation of our ecosystems and the global warming, then we need other production models, because farmers are not getting paid for what they do, for those investments. And we need investments without directly foreseeable profits. More than that, actually, because I think those who make the most profit should take responsibility. And this already indicates the core principle, how we do business, and that's the triple bottom line: planet, people, profit. But I want to go in detail here on the next slide with you, because the question overall is why are we doing this? And the simple answer would be because we need to, actually. But the basic principle of our work is much more complex and quite a change in awareness. Because no matter how hard you try to become more ecological, if you don't accept that we are part of this planet, your actions will never be what we need to solve the ecological problems and thus secure human existence on this planet. So this awareness makes it possible for us to act according to scientific knowledge and to question every decision, every strategic decision, every business decision, as to whether it lies within the planetary boundaries and whether it is good for humans. So we are part of this planet. This self-image does not sound like much, but actually it completely changes the way we do business. And if I could choose what you will remember of my words, then actually it is the change of awareness I just mentioned. And easier said than done. A few practical challenges and insights here from our side to close my input. Again, the simple answer here would be remember what's important, because then it is always about the impact that our actions have on our livelihood. I try to break it down on a few concrete keywords to make it more reasonable. Nobody pays your efforts, always said. And if you look at it in the short term, it's true. But one key to bringing nature into business is to measure KPIs in a long-term perspective. Here again, the shift of awareness comes into play, because it is not about what you could do, it's about what you should do, actually. The advantage of earning money brings with it a certain kind of responsibility. And responsibility always sounds rather bad in a business context, I know. But for us, it's a matter of perspective, because brands with a genuine sense of responsibility are in increasing demand. The sales figures during the last months of Corona clearly demonstrate this once again. The additional sales in food trade were primarily by sustainable brands. So my point is, use this responsibility as an advantage. Use your story of conversion, transform it from a burden to a USP. Because the USP of us, of Follow Food, our success is not based on how we make money, but why and with what attitude. So last and finally, we need pioneering SMEs as a proof of concept. SMEs are made for this because we can deal with what it takes to do that. Large companies are too sluggish, too stiff. It needs high flexibility and the ongoing reflection and iteration. And last but not least, my message is also, whatever you do, be transparent. Also a small shift in awareness, actually, because for us, company secrets are not the key to success anymore. Anybody could copy us, could copy Follow Food, but it is the why that makes us unique and that makes long-term business in harmony with the planetary boundaries possible. So that was my part. Thank you to all of you, and I'm looking forward to the discussion and any questions left. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julius, for all this precious information. I really liked it when you talk about SMEs as a proof of concept. And I really hope that a lot of other SMEs and larger companies will just pick up your case. So thanks again, Julius and Thierry, for those two examples, concrete examples that are showing the way. We will now move to a second part of the presentation, which will address more what are the collective tools and partnerships that can be used to actually engage SMEs into integrating nature and biodiversity into their business. And I will start by inviting Charles Snook from the Beyond Chocolate program from IDH. Charles, over to you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for the introduction and the opportunity to be here. Thank you also for both previous interventions. I hope I will be able to continue building on these insights. So my name is Charles Snook, and I'm the program manager for Beyond Chocolate. Beyond Chocolate is the Belgian initiative for sustainable cocoa. And it all started with this one quote: "With great chocolate comes great responsibility." I think that already builds up on what Thierry said before. In Belgium, we're really proud of our chocolate, proud of this product, proud of the craftsmanship. It is also an important facet of our economy. Chocolate is almost 35,000 jobs also in Belgium. And so there's a lot of expertise there and a lot of things to be proud of. But we know also that on the other side of the supply chain, there's a need for bigger responsibility. And so this is really the essence of Beyond Chocolate. The initiative was launched in 2018, in December 2018. So we're celebrating our 2-year anniversary actually around these days, by the then Minister of Development Cooperation, Alexander De Croo, with the idea really of associating the brand of Beyond Chocolate with sustainability. So what you see on this slide is on the top right side is the number of stakeholders that are involved in this. I will not go through the list, but there's a bit more than 60 signatories in the partnership today, regrouping public sector, trade unions, NGOs, knowledge institutions, social impact investors, and of course, also industry partners, individual companies, but also companies through federations. And so here, through this multi-stakeholder partnership, we actually engaged ourselves to a common ambition, and the ambition is really clear and sharp. Here, with this commitment that covers 95% of the Belgian market, we want to enable living incomes for cocoa producers by 2030, and to end deforestation that is associated with the import of cocoa beans and the chocolate industry in Belgium. It is a gigantic challenge, and I think it is widely accepted now that no one can do this alone. And so now, supported by the Belgian Development Corporation, this platform really helps to create a level playing field where we can all play our part. And this is particularly important in a highly competitive market. And so this is really the value of having this platform, is of bringing all stakeholders together around this commitment. So now, specifically on biodiversity and natural capital, I think here for cocoa, the focus on living income actually encompasses that. And so these biodiversity targets are embedded in our approach. I'll just drop one quote from a producer here. Estomac affamé n'a pas d'oreille. And so this is really one of the first things I learned when we're working in cocoa. Actually, the challenges that we see are rooted in a context of poverty. And so we absolutely need to solve that first. So quickly, our platform, 3 keywords. What we aim to do is to inspire, engage, and empower the different stakeholders. Empower stakeholders to really play their part and to be able to play their part fully. And so we know that we need these collaborations and these partnerships that bring together both companies, NGOs, knowledge institutions, and the public sector to be able to move forward together and ensure that the sum of the elements actually gets bigger and that we increase impact. So a couple of elements here that are important in order to build trustful relationships. So we worked really hard on establishing a governance structure that is representative of the stakeholders that are active in cocoa. We aim at building on what exists already and bring the different pieces together, see how we can learn from each other. And also have an engagement of transparency. So important here is that the partners also are engaged in reporting sessions and reporting to each other how they move forward, but also where there are failures and challenges, so that we can create an environment that for my cat asking to be left outside. But so one important aspect in Beyond Chocolate that really fits into this empowerment model is the investment pillar. And so the Belgian government created 2 years ago a fund of 2 million euros that is dedicated to co-financing cocoa value chain projects. And so here what we see is that with these 2 million investments, actually, we managed to unlock more than 4 million investments from the private sector, thus creating these living income pilot projects that are already reaching more than 13,000 farmers with high impact models. So these are the labs where we aim at testing our models that contribute to Beyond Chocolate and that contribute to moving faster towards our common ambitions. And so these laboratories are actually an essential part of our strategy. And here a couple of key points for that. So this co-financing actually allows to put the means on the table to really create these partnerships. So what we see now is that coalitions take place around supply chain projects, coalitions regrouping these multiple stakeholders. There are direct investments in traceability and a clear link with the Belgian market. So we see new products appearing on the shelves, which is really great because you see the market actually evolving together with the platform. And here, of course, also the scalability by design. So it is okay to start with a lab and to start small, but the idea is to grow big. I'll leave it here and very happy to continue contributing. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Charles, for showing this public-private partnership. And I'm happy that we have the chance to present a second public-private partnership in the same kind of context, but on a different topic, because we're not only working on chocolate in Belgium. So I invite Bergen Lebleu for the next presentation, and he's going to explain what happens with the Green Deal companies and biodiversity. Bergen, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for your introduction. And I would like to say that Corridor is, of course, honored to participate in this summit. And I'd like to tell you about our existing support tool in Flanders, and it's called the Green Deal Business and Biodiversity. And what is this? Well, this Green Deal is a voluntary agreement between private partners and the Flemish government to start a green and innovative project. And with this Green Deal, we want to increase biodiversity on SME sites and strengthen the need for it, because we sometimes feel it's still not a matter of major concern for some of them. And this Green Deal tries to take away this barrier by emphasizing the opportunities. So one of the main objectives of Corridor is to create more and better nature and thus biodiversity at SME sites in Flanders. And this was really a challenge for us and my colleagues. My colleagues developed tools to level up biodiversity, but didn't find enough support to implement this. And therefore, we had the idea of starting a community of local authorities, companies, and other organizations who wanted to support the concept of biodiversity on industrial sites or business parks through what we call a so-called learning network. And this would give us a platform to get to know our clients and their needs. In order to develop ideas, we searched alliances with our government, the Department of Environment and Spatial Development, the Department, Natuurpunt, and the Agency for Nature and Forests, those three partners. You can see their logos there. We had a common goal, and support seemed necessary to mainstream biodiversity on sites and parks. And we made a frame of what we now call the Green Deal. And we are convinced that this alliance formed the basis for more interest within SMEs for creating biodiversity. In this way, we simply got more support. And apart from raising the biodiversity on SME sites through tools or raising the awareness, which is very important with stakeholders, starting from greeneries to sites developers, we also still would like to stress that the welfare of the employers and employees will increase with it. So the influence of a more natural environment on human beings is, of course, more than proven. But last and not least, sharing know-how and experience is one of the topics we would like to stress. To know more about biodiversity and the necessity for it will lead to action, we think. How do we implement this Green Deal? By suggesting an action plan consisting of 5 stepping stones to stimulate biodiversity within a company, and the implementation on their sides, starting from appointing a person who will guide the plan to scanning the site on the current state of the biodiversity. So only then you can build towards a plan which is, of course, built after the scan. And after the evaluation, also important, upscaling can be done by contacting an expert to make a more long-term management plan. The impact of this Green Deal is that now we can say that it's mainly large companies with a good starting situation, or companies that provide service for the public benefit, that start with building up biodiversity, because it has a direct effect on the working environment and the image of the company. But let us not forget that SMEs, of course, also choose more biodiversity because of their responsibility towards the environment and society in general. Some numbers. In total, 135 companies have joined the Green Deal, and this means that more than 2,000 hectares business parks have been molded or being molded into a more biodiverse environment. To conclude, during this deal, awareness has grown with a lot of companies and stakeholders, and a lot of action also has been taken. But getting the companies in with a less favorable starting situation can be a point of attention. Incentives can be more tailor-made advice, amendment of the legislation framework, and maintaining of levies and subsidies. So in this way, the late majority can even be engaged. And finally, we're planning on continuing to work with the community I just talked about, we've built, and we're considering the options on how to extend and continue the work of this in a sustainable way. The slide you see there, those are the takeaways to create more and better nature, and how we do this via valuable alliances between government, NGO, and companies. And we had to look to start a learning network together with our partners to build a community, to get to know the legislation, to create tools, to offer an action plan, as I just said, and to contact experts for the future plans. And that's a contact form, which I think you still can consult after the summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for sharing with us about this Green Deal. And thank you to both of you, actually, Sean and Begijn, for showing how these kind of partnerships can also create a sense of a community and to share responsibility, but with a common goal. And we've been at the Shift involved in many of those Green Deals, and it's always a very, very good result at the end. I will then now switch to the next part of our presentation today. And before starting the panel discussion, I would like to introduce a few numbers from the SMEs and Nature Survey, which has been launched by the EU Business and Biodiversity Platform, by the We Value Nature campaign, by the Capitals Coalition, and by the Enterprise European Network of the European Commission. So this survey has been done also to better capture the needs of SMEs and to see what are the tools that we can develop specifically for them so that we can empower and they can act better. A first number is that 91% of the surveyed SMEs are aware of natural capital, but, and it's written only 49%, have started the journey to integrate natural capital into their decision. Although it's written only, 49% is already a high number according to me. It's a good sign. The survey has highlighted what are the top 5 drivers and the top 5 barriers to acting for SMEs. I just want to note that all the results will be published around January, so I'm not going to spend too much time on going into the details of them, but you can read them on the slide right now. Another important number of the survey is that 61% of the survey's SMEs need additional support to integrate nature. That's also a very positive number because it means that those 61% actually want to go further if they spot that they need more support. The support required is mainly practical guidance, tools, networking opportunities, which is why also Green Deals and other partnerships are really important because they offer that. Access to case studies and best practice, and training to help the companies. As Behen underlined, it's really important to surround yourself with experts also. And another question that was really interesting is to show that the effect of the crisis actually did rather confirm the will of SMEs to fully integrate nature and biodiversity into their working, or even for them represents an opportunity to reinvent their business model to give more space to nature and biodiversity. So that's also a very positive number to see that only 8% of the surveyed SMEs are saying that it pushes nature down the lists of the company's priority. That said, and with all this information in mind, I will then switch to the panel discussion. And we're going to try to address what needs to be done then to go to the next level and to increase the integration of biodiversity and nature into SMEs working. I'm going to start with a question for our first speaker, Majda Dabagi. And I will then ask you, Majda, what can be learned from ICC's recent experience of engaging SMEs through the SME Climate Hub we recently launched? Sorry, for ICC is the International Chamber of Commerce. Majda, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much. And it's getting dark. I'm in Paris, but the sky is getting dark, so hopefully the screen doesn't go black. But thank you so much for this question and for this really inspiring discussion today. And I want to really pick up on what you've just said, Lara, on how do we take this to the next level? And it really is all about scale. The International Chamber of Commerce is the largest business organization in the world. There's over 45 million companies in our network, both SMEs, but also large multinationals. And we have been working on a project with some partners, including We Mean Business, Exponential Roadmap Initiative, and the Race to Zero campaign of the UN to build an SME Climate Hub to really answer a lot of the questions that have come up in your survey or that you've identified. So I'd like to share a little bit more about the SME Climate Hub as a kind of example of how we can help to take climate to the next level, but also the interrelated issue of nature and biodiversity loss. So the hub is really intended to be a one-stop shop where an SME, no matter where they are in the world, can first of all make a commitment to climate by committing to have their emissions by 2030, achieve net zero emissions before 2050, and also to report on an annual basis. And the commitment is really a way for SMEs to signal that they are on this trajectory to net zero, and very much to the point that Julius and Thierry made at the start, this kind of mindset shift. You're ready for the mindset shift, and it's just a question of, well, then how do you go about it? And the how is really fundamental. Not when you're an SME, especially if you're a very small SME with 5 employees, you won't necessarily have a sustainability team. And so how do you start to take your first steps? And so tomorrow we'll be launching the tools and resources on the SME Climate Hub that will help small businesses, no matter where they are, to take those first steps to, first of all, measure their emissions, and then reduce their emissions in their value chain, their own emissions, and also in their value chain, have a strategy for getting to net zero, and a way to also track their progress. And I think this kind of toolbox is really important. And so some of the tools that were just mentioned on the Green Deal could also sort of be integrated into the hub. And we could have also measurement tools for biodiversity and tools that really link climate and nature on the hub. So if anyone on the panel or listening today has any tools that they'd like to contribute to the hub, please do share those with us. You'll see on the site there's a way to do that. And finally, the survey also suggested that some of the barriers are financial. Some of them are a question of incentives. And so the SME Climate Hub also offers those incentives. First of all, every SME that makes the climate commitment is going to be recognized by the UN Race to Zero. And so we'll be part of this, the largest coalition of stakeholders, including governments, cities, regions, universities, art galleries, all committed to net zero before 2050. So the SME Climate Hub is really this gateway into that race to zero. The SMEs that make the climate commitment also will be recognized by major supply chain leaders. So many supply chain leaders are supporting the SME Climate Hub, including names you'll recognize like Ericsson, British Telecom or BT, IKEA, Unilever, Nestle, Telia, and so on. And the supply chain leaders have all made very strong commitments to climate action. And in order for them to meet their goals, they really have to work across their entire value chain to achieve net zero by 2030, 2040, 2050, whatever their targets happen to be. And so it's important that the supply chain leaders work hand in hand to support the SMEs in their value chain. But it also signals to SMEs that do trade internationally that there is this trend towards supply chain leaders really requiring or making climate action a procurement requirement or a criteria. And so if we're trying to kind of go mainstream and take it to the next level, it's really important that we also have a look at how do we get all companies on board? How do we mainstream? And some of the reasons that we can, I'm not sure if it's just me, but that slide looks cut in half to where I am, but I'll just skip it. Okay. Oh, so you should have a slide here in front of you that says what's in it for my business. Thanks for whoever's managing the slides to help me. I'm obviously having a difficult time. But to mainstream, we really have to also maybe help some businesses who aren't doing it, who aren't taking action just because it's the right thing to do or because we need to, as Julia and Thierry have mentioned. But to show really that this is the necessary way forward and that it can have advantages for businesses. And I think that the pandemic has really shown that we need to build business resilience. One of the biggest threats to SMEs is climate change and nature loss. And so we have to, as small businesses, address those external threats and build business resilience so that when there is an external threat where we are, and climate change is already happening, nature loss is already happening. So we do really have to address these and ensure that our business is able to survive through the external threat, but also to really thrive into the future. And it's the case for taking action is really clear in terms of the competitive advantage that it can present, how to manage business risk, how to improve efficiencies and therefore reduce your overhead costs, but also giving you access to capital and more affordable insurance. And of course, just growing your business and growing your brand. And so there are a multitude of reasons of why it's really just makes business sense for SMEs to take action both on climate and on biodiversity. And we hope that the SME Climate Hub will be the place for businesses to come signal that commitment and use the tools and resources that are available on the hub so that we can show that we are making really exponential change and really have an impact and therefore kind of improve that ambition loop with governments. So encourage all of those who are listening, who are SMEs under 500 companies, under 500 employees, to go on to the SME Climate Hub and make that commitment and start taking your first steps towards action on climate and nature. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Majda, for your positivity and for also answering my second question in once. That's perfect. Now we've been through your very valuable intervention. I will then go to the next person in our panel today, Guido Lena, Director for Sustainable Development at SME United. Hello, Guido. I would like to ask you, how do you perceive these discussions on the need to integrate nature into SMEs' activities, and what needs to be done to fully engage them on this journey, apart from inviting them to go to the SME Climate Hub, which where to go now for guidance? What is your view on this, Guido? The floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Lara. Thanks for the invitation. Our view is these are very interesting developments. They will probably become more and more important in the next years. Unfortunately, I have the feeling that they're still not in the mind of most SMEs, as it was also shown. And this is the situation is worse due to the pandemic. So maybe these ideas could help a lot of SMEs out of the pandemic, but a certain set of measures should be adopted and the framework should be there to foster this development. I would say that the first thing that we need is a lot of awareness raising, and this was already confirmed. So we should need to know, companies should need to know why they have to do it. Why does this matter? What's in there for them? And this should be done in the language of the companies, not only in English, getting links with the national level so that with national competent bodies and with SME organizations that know how SMEs work, that have presence on the territory at the local level where SME works. We don't have to rely only and exclusively on internet sites in English at European level, because most SMEs, and I think most micro and small businesses, don't use these instruments. They prefer activities at local level. They prefer live meetings at local level with entities and authorities that they recognize and they trust. The second point, in my opinion, is once that you know why you have to do it, and you need to know how to do it. So you need assistance, guidance, technical assistance, particularly at local level, to know how to switch your business model. This is a key aspect that is particularly complicated and should be done maybe also through business organization at local level. That's why we advocate for some capacity building for SME association at local level that are able to help and support SMEs, particularly the micro and the small ones, in this process. Then definitely I would say that you need easier access to finance. There are costs in all these, as it was already mentioned. Very often SMEs rely on local banks for their financing, but it's not always easy. I mean, you have to know whether banks understand the value of this change. They understand the return of these new business models, and if are able and willing to give finance for these. And this is not always the case, as far as we know. So this should be changed. There should be also campaigns towards banks, and maybe also find alternative sources of financing, because without finance to change what is needed to go in that direction, nothing will move. I think the other point that was also raised is a matter of skills. Both entrepreneur and also his employees need to be reskilled, upskilled, because it's not a matter of a traditional business anymore with traditional profit. You do these also for nature. You do these to reduce your impact on nature. You do these for responsibility, as a lot of the previous speakers mentioned. And so you need to switch your mind. You need to have new competencies in managing and working in the companies. And this is also very important. And in my opinion, as it was also mentioned before, you also need incentives. Okay, I mean, what do they get concretely out of that? Some recognition, some better positioning on the market for your customer, in your business, in your supply chain. Then if policy instruments are put into practice to support this development, I mean, it's like EU policy, EU legislations, it's important that you don't take instruments already there, already conceived for big companies, and you simply adapt them to small businesses. Because a micro company, as my previous boss always used to say, it's not the bonsai version of a big company. It's a different structure, completely different in the way the entrepreneurs interact with a few employees, the procedures, which are very often not written but oral. Everybody is very flexible. So you need to start from the scratch, and you need to draft something which is based on the Think Small First principle of the Small Business Act, and start from the very beginning to be conceived for micro and small companies, and not, as I said, adapt something that a big business normally does. I think these are, in my opinion, some of the key elements which could push the situation in that direction and increase the number of companies which start thinking, SMEs start thinking about these developments, which, as I said, is important and will become more important in the next future.
Thank you, Guido. And before asking a second question to you, I see Majda reacting in our internal chat and indeed saying that the SME Climate Hub is working with ICC's 3,000 chambers of commerce locally. So that's indeed a very important point. Now, going to my second question for you, what do you think could be done concretely in the coming months to accelerate this uptake, given the urgency of this situation?
Well, my suggestion is, okay, sooner or later this pandemic will move, and then there will be a new start. In this period, then the best thing would be to reinforce awareness raising instrument, because this is the basis of everything. So there should be some, maybe you start for the guides which are already there on the market and try to make them more concise in all the EU languages, explaining exactly what SMEs, why SMEs should go for that, what advantage they should use, they should have, how they have to, what they have to do at a national level. I mean, if they have partners, if they have institutions, public, SMEs organization, national competent bodies or national contact points that they can help in this process, and what and where they could find financings for this. So a sort of get ready to for companies to start considering it, this initiative. And as I said, it's important that it's in all languages, because most micro businesses don't speak any English, and they are not used to working with documents in English.
Thank you very much, Guido. I will now ask a question to Crispin Weymouth, who joined us. I hope, Crispin, you're all connected. My first question is, what can be learned from the Enterprise Europe network in terms of SMEs engagement that would help them on their nature journey? And Crispin, sorry, I lost my little paper. Crispin Weymouth as Deputy Head Unit of SME Internationalization at DG Grow from the European Commission. Crispin, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very clearly.
Very good. No, so thanks very much. And I want to echo a lot of what Majda and Guido has just said is, I think there's kind of three things here. Is that on the one hand, we heard some really excellent examples from Thierry, from Julius and others about how businesses can really benefit, how they can make this a real profit model. And it really kind of echoes what we think, that what is good for the climate is good for us all. It's good business. And we need more companies like that. We need them to become the norm, not the exception. And really, it's very clear to us that there is no way back. We just simply have to do this. But on the other hand, and I think, Guido, you kind of mentioned it, which is we have to recognize where we are right now. And, outside, as I came in this morning, it's a really unhappy situation. And, our SMEs are in a bad place right now. I mean, just to give you some figures, we're seeing 70% in a recent survey said that their revenues had declined. 1 in 5 felt they might have to lay off employees or default on loans. 28% feel that they would have to cancel growth projects. And over half felt their businesses might not survive 12 months. So, when we're having a conversation, which we need to have, about moving to promoting biodiversity and doing the right thing for our planet, we have to be very careful about how it sounds to SMEs right now when they're just struggling to keep their businesses afloat. And even in the best of times, when you're having that conversation, it can be a difficult one, because I heard an example of a support network who said to an SME, look, you should put solar panels on your factory roof. It would, in 5 years' time, you get a massive payoff. He said, 5 years' time, I might be bankrupt in 1. So we've got to do it, but we've also got to be aware of this problem. And we've got to look not just at the leaders, the really, 3 types of companies. SMEs who are really leading on sustainability and biodiversity, for example, by producing packaging. Kinds of companies like Julius and Thierry, who are really, it's part of their core of who they are. But also be attentive to even quite innovative companies where it's really not at the center of their operation. And you talked about awareness. And so we need to do something that kind of addresses and supports all 3. So what we're doing, and it's about also we need to be attentive to the phasing and what it means, and how we introduce regulation, how we apply it in a way that works for SMEs and is scalable. I mean, I thought Majda said that, and that was quite right. And turn it into the kind of opportunities. So what we're doing in the Enterprise Europe network is we have the world's biggest support network for SMEs. It's made up of 625 partner organizations in 66 countries, most of them in Europe. And what they've already been doing is providing tailored advice to SMEs on how who want to grow in our single market and beyond. And frankly, we started to pick up that sustainability and biodiversity was already becoming a local issue. So what we've announced earlier this year is that over the next couple of years, we're going to put in place dedicated sustainability advisors in all of those partner organizations. And what those advisors are going to do is they're going to take their client companies who come to them saying, look, I want to grow internationally. And look at their needs and say, these are the areas where you can concentrate on sustainability, on biodiversity, on doing the right thing by the planet. And it's a lot of the kinds of things that Guido said that they need, and we see from that survey, is giving them dedicated advice on specific issues, be it waste management, resource efficiency, and if they haven't got that in-house, pushing them to the people who have. giving them tailored information on the rules and help, what is specific to you, how do you navigate this? Guido talked about skills. Yeah, we need more capacity building, more training for them, how to do it. We need more support for them on innovating, finding new ways, access to finance. Guido, you mentioned it, and absolutely right. Also, where there are public procurement opportunities that companies might benefit from. And also, frankly, finally, how they can build partnerships with each other. So we're putting it in place. It's going to be fully up and running in about a year, just over a year's time. And what we want to do is not to replace what's happening on the ground. We heard Begain gave a very good example of what's happening in Flanders, but we want to kind of build on that and produce a kind of European value added. We want to learn from the best practice that's happening, not just in the SMEs, but also in the support networks, in the supporters, those people trying to help companies to grow. I spoke to a number of my colleagues across the network across Europe last week, and they're starting to have a conversation with their companies. It's not the start of their conversation about how to business, but at a certain point they said, we're starting to slip it in and say, look, if you want to grow long term, this is how you could do it. These are the resources we think that might be useful to you. And as I thought Majda was absolutely right when she said, you got to focus on what's in it for the business. How does it make them more resilient? How is it that it will help them through the next crisis? So that's what we're doing. And I think it's about looking at the economic model in a different way, rather than saying, here's what works on the top. How do we make it work for SMEs, or do we exempt them? It's like, here's what works for SMEs. How do we scale it up?
Thank you very much, Crispin. I will go very fast to a second question we have for you now that our dancing slides have been stopping dancing, but we are already 2 minutes ahead of schedule. So I would like to ask you, if I'm on the right slide again, how do you see the role of sustainability advisors in addressing the barriers identified in the SME and nature survey? I will put them again on the slides. It would be very interesting in a very short amount of time to have your view on this question. Christine, I give you the word back.
Well, thanks very much. And I think it's exactly the kind of the things I talked about. Is when you look at the barriers, costs. Yeah, this is absolutely unsurprising. This is what we're hearing, and so it's helping them mitigate their costs. It's also showing them dedicated funding opportunities. Sometimes the problem for SMEs, and I'm sure that the colleagues would agree, isn't that there isn't sufficient information. It's that there's too much information dispersed, and it's telling them this funding opportunity could be useful to you. Lack of data, yeah, it's helping them to understand it. It's giving them dedicated advice. It's talking them through how it can, the specific ways that they can turn it to advantage. Yeah, giving them the training. We see skills. And yeah, lots of case studies, giving them best examples and saying this company did this, or maybe you want to partner with these people. So I think, yeah, it's a lot of the stuff that we're planning with the sustainability advisors. And by the way, it's already in place in a number of member states. You look at what, say, our Danish colleagues are doing, our German colleagues are doing, our Flemish colleagues are doing. These services are already being provided. We just want to build it out at European level.
Thank you very much for this last question. We unfortunately don't have questions, don't have time for
Apologize if I was too quick.
Sorry? We don't have time, unfortunately, for questions and answers from the floor. And we will have to close the session now. I just quickly want to inform all of you, we are now having a break of 30 minutes, at least for everyone. For those who have not registered to the corridor talks, who have not been accepted to join, you can join us for the part 3 of the event, which will start at 2 via the common link you received. And for those who have registered for the corridor talks, it will start at 1. There will be 2 sessions. You just have to use the link that you have received in the email confirmation for the corridor talks. So don't connect on the main link of the event, but using the link of the email confirmation, and then you will be just put through in the 2 sessions of 25 minutes. There we are. I would like to thank everyone first for participating to this session, and certainly to all our speakers that have brought a lot of interesting experience, information, details, insights for SMEs to go further on their nature journey. And I think we are set. The recording of the session and the presentations will be available for you later on with this platform. So have a good day, everyone, and see you later at 1 or at 2, depending on the next program for you. Have a good break.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.